Okay, let's see. So I can share the agenda here. Okay, so I had a few just announcement type things first, and then we can talk about other topics too. But yesterday we merged a change to the handbook for Monitor. We're going to start doing weekly async issue updates. So the merge request is there and the actual handbook change. Basically, the goal there is to once a week, just update each issue that you're working on with the current status. It should be pretty, it's just this. So just what's this current quick summary of the status, when it's going to be ready, and then do we need to break it down at all? Adriel, the front end team has been doing this. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. It seems to be pretty helpful. It will help me, and I think Dove has been looking for something similar to this for some of the issues that especially the ones that we move from one release to the next, to know kind of how much work is left. But I think it'll just be useful for everyone if you're looking at an issue just to know at least the current status. So that's that. Does anyone have any questions about that?
I'm wondering whether we shouldn't also put a note in that about, like, if we're hitting the end of, I don't know, maybe it's separate, but we had talked about like how to determine how much weight is left in an issue if we miss a particular release, which would be helpful for Dove in knowing where to schedule that. I'm wondering if this shouldn't be part of that, although it seems a little overkill to do it every week. And, you know, because if we're going to make that release, it doesn't matter, but maybe at the end of a release, I don't know, maybe we can, that's probably a topic for a separate discussion, but.
Yeah, that's true. It could be, yeah, I see what you're saying. This, when do you predict it to be ready, might kind of get at that, but it's not exactly that, like, but I know what you're saying. So, but maybe, yeah, maybe before we move anything, yeah, maybe we should bring that up, that before we move any issue, we can make sure to put something in there about how much work is left, basically. So.
Yeah, I definitely like that to happen. Yeah, I mean, my ask was merely because of that moving of issues between versions and releases. It's great to have like a weekly update, but personally for me, I would like to have it at the end of the release.
Do you know, Dove, what kind of time frame that normally falls on for you? Like, do you have a certain, like, when would you need that information? When do you typically do that? Just after the 22nd, or? So
I'm actually even before, because when I'm planning so I did only one planning one time, so it will change. But I think a couple of days before, I'm starting to look deeply on the issues that we have. I'm also trying to, maybe I'll be able to do it in the next release, but I'm trying to start from a clean sheet. Like, we have always moved things around, and probably in the next release 12.6, I will try start from clean sheet. And in that, it will be extremely helpful for me to know how much time left. To answer your question, probably like a couple of days before, and it depends if it falls on my weekend. My weekend is Friday, Saturday, so if it falls on my weekend, then it will probably be before. This month, I'm on vacation, so I'm starting to do my planning next week. So I guess it's something that I'm trying, and I don't have like the right method right now, but yeah.
Okay. I'll think about that and put together a proposal then. If it's, I mean, I think it's reasonable if it's a few days before the release and we realize, it's not in production yet, then we know it's going to have to carry over. I guess maybe that's a better practice then. At the point where we know we're going to have to carry over to the next release, we post a comment about how much effort that will represent in the next, whenever we schedule that for the next release. All right, I'll put together MR for that.
Yeah, and as I told Matt yesterday, I mean, we are trying. I mean, if we see that this practice does not work and we need to pivot it a bit and change it, then that's fine. I mean, every release we'll try to improve it.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Sounds good. Okay. Anything else on that topic? I think Clement said he was going to also create a reminder in Slack so everyone remembers to do that. So we can work on that too, so we don't forget.
I will also, just for the front end team, I'll deprecate then the Geekbot remind, because we've been using Geekbot as our reminder system for that, but we're doing a Slack reminder. That's probably a little more lo-fi and probably better for us anyway. So I'll just get rid of the Geekbot. Yeah.
Yeah. The nice thing about Geekbot is that you can configure it to the right time, right? When you want to get reminded. Slack has the downside of and Clement brought this up, that it's kind of tied to whoever sets it up, or it's a very specific time. It's not adjustable for time zones or anything, the reminders. So we'll have
Isn't it? I thought each user could configure their own time when they wanted to get reminded.
Maybe. Yeah, that could be. So
anyway, if we're standardizing, so I'll just remove it. It's fine.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, the next one, I just want to make sure everyone heard about this and saw this. There's been a number of announcements and emails and things on the company call about it, but there's Eric and others want to prioritize availability and security is kind of the top priority. It kind of historically has always been velocity, as we've said, is the top priority, but we can't, unless we're also thinking about availability and security, we can't move very fast. I think part of the background on that is, and if others have more context, they can fill it in too, but we want GitLab.com to be available for enterprise customers, that's an option, so they don't have to stand up their own hardware, their own infrastructure. They could just use GitLab.com. But before an enterprise customer will do that, they need to know or trust that GitLab.com will be highly available. So everyone, at least everyone in the engineering group, should have gotten an email from Eric with a Google form to acknowledge that. I don't know how widespread that was sent out, but I just wanted to make sure everyone saw that email and has seen this change. So I don't need to go into any more detail unless anyone has thoughts or questions. I just wanted to make sure everyone had seen that. Okay. Then lastly, this morning, yesterday we noticed that about 20% of our bugs had not had priority or severity labels, which was a little surprising. I don't know. It kind of fell. I lost track of it a little bit. So I went through and prioritized and put severities and assigned them to milestones. If any of those, I kind of just had to take a heavy hand and just kind of go through them all. So if anyone disagrees with any of the priorities or severities, or especially the milestones I assigned them to, feel free to update them. I just kind of took my best guess based on what I knew about each bug. So,
so how come they were not prioritized? I mean, just missed them. I mean,
yeah, there was a handful that were created. So part of the process is we also get a report every week. I think it gets sent to me and Dove maybe and Adriel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With all the new bugs or any bugs that aren't prioritized and I can't say that word. Severitized, is that?
Yeah, killed it, nailed it.
Is that the word, right, Daniel? Okay. If you don't have a priority or severity, or they're not scheduled, we get a report of that. So we've been using that to kind of go through and make sure everything is. I think there were some that either slipped through that, or I thought I prioritized, but maybe I didn't. So there were some that missed there. And then there was, I know there's a handful that were all created in the last week or so, and that we just hadn't seen yet. So I made sure all those, including a number, I don't know, maybe I should put this on here. I don't know if everyone watched. Kenny recently did a video of kind of walking through setting up a project with Auto DevOps and monitoring. And as part of that, he created a number of issues of errors that or problems he saw. So there were 3 or 4 right there that he created in the last couple of days that just hadn't been prioritized yet. So that was part of it. I think we just need to do, and I need to do a better job of kind of checking on that on a regular basis, just to kind of keep an eye on what's coming in too. Anyone have questions about any of those? I'll find I think Kenny posted it, but if not, I can share the link to that video too that he did. It was pretty good. But he just started from, has anyone else seen that video, or is it just me?
I saw the link to it at some point, but I never did go back and look at it, and it's,
I'll see if I can.
Falling off my radar.
Yeah, I saw
but I would like to. I would like to see it.
Yeah, I have the link if you.
Okay. Yeah, I have it here too.
You have it also? Okay.
So maybe I'll just put that as a new thing. So yeah, that one, but I think it was it shed some light on some problems that we have and how kind of confusing it is to set up the whole Auto DevOps with Kubernetes. So that one's pretty good. Okay. Those were kind of just announcement things. Does anyone else have just high level announcements that they want to bring up before we move on? Okay. Kind of the big thing, we kind of talked about it a little bit already, about thinking about kind of the next milestone and what's not going to make it and how we can handle those. So there's still 31 things slated for 12.4, which considering we started with less than 20 and that was kind of our target, it seems like there's probably too much. I don't know that we need to go through every one of these issues right now, but I did want to talk about how to, like, what is that process of kind of going through and reviewing and seeing, like, how do we know if things aren't going to make it and when do we do that? So that's really what I kind of wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting topic of conversation as well, because everything, well, from the release standpoint, they're completely moving away from even being able to predict what's in and what's out unless you're just weeks ahead of the cutoff. So I think, I don't know, I'm not sure what the best process is for this, except to say that, you know, maybe keeping the 7th in mind as our soft deadline is not such a bad idea, just because of the way these releases have been rolling out. Like, I've been trying to get more information from release as far as, like, when does this stuff get released? The answer is that we deploy multiple times a week at, you know, intervals that are mostly determined by how much code we're merging. So there's no guarantee that if you get it merged, you know, I don't know. I'm not exactly clear. And the answer is basically we don't do prediction anymore. So it's a really weird state right now between, like, continuous delivery and our monthly releases that we cut. So I don't know. I think our safest bet, if we really want to be sure that it's in there, is that it's merged probably at least 2 weeks before the cutoff, maybe a week if we're pushing it, as long as there's like I guess it depends on when the 22nd falls.
Right. Right, because we were kind of shooting for the 15th because that's a week before the 22nd. But now, what it sounds like you're saying is that even that's not guaranteed, right?
Well, I don't know. It's safer than the 17th, which is what we said initially. I think as long as we are like 5 to 7 working days before the 22nd, it seems like things will make it in.
Okay.
but the weekends are what throws that off. So it's not a very clean, like 7 days before. It has to do with where it falls, and I think it comes down to some of those working days and why that's
Okay.
making a difference. As best I can tell, like I said, there's not really a set release schedule, so it's a little hard to predict. But I know that we cut a release at least once per week. So, probably having it merged the Monday before
the 22nd. The Monday of the week before the 22nd.
The Monday, that's it. The Monday of the week before the 22nd, I think is probably a safe deadline. So wherever that falls.
Yeah. So like this month, the 22nd is on a Tuesday. So if things are merged so the 14th.
Yeah. So really the 14th is so really the 14th is your safest cutoff. And preferably before the 14th, which is a bigger problem because that means it's actually the 11th, which is like the end of next week.
Right.
So to actually have it merged.
So unless there was some update to it, my understanding was we were doing a merge every Monday, and that was a week through Canary and staging, and then the following Monday it would go to final test, and I believe then Wednesday was validation, and it would be complete, and then Wednesday it would actually be released. So there was like a week plus a little bit to go to release, but there was a big discussion around when we first changed to the 17th as being the end of the milestone work, which we moved. And the discussion there ended up being kind of like just a simple question of like, do people feel like things that they had merged on the Monday, were those things going to end up? So the Monday was sorry, let me say that again. I'm still sick. I apologize. So like on the 17th, if you merged it by the end of day 17th, the question was, do you think that would end up in the milestone? And it seemed like there was still some confusion there, but what ended up happening was pretty much anything merged prior to the 17th was going in. And then it seemed that the consensus was that most people were of the impression that if it was merged by the end of the 17th, it would be in, because they cut a new release for that. I'm going to follow up. It seems like if you're all kind of not sure about this process, then it makes me wonder whether I know what I'm talking about too. So like, I'm going to go double check this. So I think it's probably worth following up here. But that was my understanding of that release process.
I think that's how it was initially, but it's changed. So I'll link you to a Slack thread that I have. I posted in releases. I don't remember when this was, but basically I got.
Uh-oh.
I think we need a new release of Adriel's connection.
Okay. Hopefully he comes back. But yeah, so he'll share that then. But yeah, I think it's confusing. One other thing I wanted to bring up, I think, I was talking to someone about one of the configure teams, and I don't think they even pay attention to, the engineering side doesn't really pay attention to when things are getting released. They just kind of do more of a Kanban style, I guess. That would be a bigger change for our team, but it's something we could think about. I think they just use a kind of a workflow board. So they have a list of things that are ready for development. They just move it through like in development and review. And then they're not really, I'll try to follow up and get some more specifics about it, but they're not thinking about, is this in 12.4? Is it going to end up in 12.5? For an engineering side, that's fine, but that makes it a lot harder on the product side, I think, to figure out what's going to be released and what can get in the release post, things like that.
Sometimes we do have dependencies on configure as well. So, I mean, I know I've had a release or a issue or two that is also a configure issue. So.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, like I said, I don't think we need to go through each of the issues right now. but we'll maybe we can kind of start looking through, each person kind of look through the issues they're assigned and see if there's any that they know right away. Because if Dove is going to be starting to look at that next week and planning for 12.5, then we should start looking at that kind of now to help him understand what needs to be prioritized for the next milestone as well.
Yeah, and also with the release post. By the way, there are some issues that are not assigned.
Okay, yep.
Not a lot, but the ones that are not assigned, can I assume that they will not make it, right?
I would think so, yeah, at this point. Yeah, I'm just glancing at them, but yeah.
There's still for documentation, but there is one about the load test. Load like
be able to load test Prometheus data.
Load, yeah, and there is another one from Prometheus.
Yeah,
I assume that they will not make it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Just on the milestone releases and stuff, I linked to the actual handbook, which is saying the 13th release scope finalized. So
okay.
For whatever that's worth, if it's actively changing and there's some other information that Adriel has, that seems to be where it is. But I will follow up with that.
Okay, great.
Hey guys, sorry, my internet cut out there. I was just saying I will link once this comes back on, I'm going to link a Slack thread that where I'm getting this from in the doc here.
Okay. Okay, great. Are there other topics that people wanted to bring up today? Any questions or concerns? If not, we can call it early. I just wanted to put a reminder on here, like I want to every time, to make sure that you're filling out the retrospective. If anything comes up, I put the link in here. So I'll kind of sound like a broken record in these meetings and kind of remind people every week that we want to make sure we're keeping that up to date. And as things come up, we want to enter them into that retrospective document. The company-wide retrospective is today. Is that right? Today in like an hour and a half or so. There's public live stream, and that should be on your calendars. If it's not, let me know. But it's on the GitLab team meetings calendar too. I don't know if hopefully everyone's aware. I'll just remind you that we take the information from our monitor retrospective, pull out some of the highlights or things we want to improve, bring that up to kind of the organization level. And then at the meeting today, I think it's Clement, volunteered from the monitor stage this week or this month to kind of present that to the rest of the company. So if you haven't been through that process, that's kind of what we do. Okay. Does anyone else have anything before we call it a day? All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and have a great evening, morning, day. Bye.